Wink News begins with breaking news.
After 4 years, justice.
So relieved. So relieved.
Mark Sievers guilty of first-degree murder in his wife Teresa's death.
Just minutes before, the jolt from her family as the verdict is read.
And a day that Mark Sievers started with a smirk and a joke in court.
But I'd like to go home.
Ends with no chance that will ever happen. Now, the next step. Will the jury recommend he be put to death?
We have reporters covering every angle of this story across Lee County tonight, from the courthouse to the Sievers neighborhood in Bonita Springs.
First, the Night Beat's Taylor Petras talked to Dr. Teresa Sievers' family right after they heard the verdict. Taylor.
Well, Chris, it's a verdict this family has been waiting for nearly 4.5 years. They've had to relive their loved one, Dr. Teresa Sievers' murder, over and over again inside this courthouse. A huge weight lifted off their shoulders tonight.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
Powerful emotion from Dr. Teresa Sievers' mother, brothers, and sister as the guilty verdict was read aloud in court Wednesday evening. They then shared hugs with the prosecutors who helped get justice for their family. Their former in-law, Mark Sievers, found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
Anything you guys would like to say?
Very happy with the verdict.
Very happy. Very happy.
Dr. Sievers' sister, Ann Lisa, had only one way to describe her emotions.
So relieved. So relieved.
Relieved and ready to move on.
I'm just so glad it's over. We just want to get on with our lives now.
And just a few hours ago, we spoke to one of Dr. Teresa Sievers' longtime friends on the phone who actually testified in trial earlier this week. She says this is a moment they've been waiting for a long time, and it's been a long time coming. You could actually hear the relief in her voice on the phone. Live on the Night Beat, I'm Taylor Petras. Wink News now.
It only took the jury 4 hours to convict Mark Sievers. After weeks of hearing from dozens of witnesses, the trial phase of this case is now over. The Night Beat's Brooke Schaefer has been inside the courtroom every day of this trial. She continues our team coverage inside the Lee County Courthouse. Brooke?
Amanda, we were just about 10 minutes away from when we thought the jury was going to head home for the night. Instead, they surprised us all when the bailiff walked into the courtroom and said the jury had a verdict after just hours of deliberation.
A quick guilty verdict for Mark Sievers in the 2015 death of his wife, Teresa.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
Mark Sievers, the now convicted mastermind in the murder of his wife, also found guilty of conspiracy. His face nearly emotionless as they read the verdict. But moments later, he started crying as it seemed the reality of his conviction set in. Over the last 3 weeks of testimony, the state called forward dozens of witnesses, like the man who confessed to killing Teresa Sievers, Mark's former best friend.
I agreed to do this because my friend asked me to. Our agreement was it would be paid after he got his life insurance payment.
Any comment?
Attorneys for the state spoke with us moments after the verdict.
We are pleased with the judges. We are pleased with the jury's verdict, and the family, as you can see, has had a sense of such relief.
Sievers' defense team, on the other hand, declined to comment.
Excuse me?
No comment on the verdict?
No, thank you. Y'all have a good night.
The near silence from the defense team, a sharp contrast to what we had seen throughout the trial. Most of the time, Sievers' lawyer was chatting with us in between breaks. Tonight, though, no response or reaction from the Sievers defense team. Live inside the Lee County Courthouse, I'm Brooke Schaefer, Wink News now.
Brooke, thank you. This case captured Southwest Florida's headlines and has put this Bonita Springs neighborhood in the spotlight. Neighbors are relieved to hear tonight that Teresa's husband will never walk their streets again. Night Beat's Gina Tomlinson continues our breaking news live team coverage from Bonita Springs. New at 11. Gina.
Every neighbor we spoke to tonight is happy to hear this verdict. They've been waiting for more than 4 years for justice in the tragic crime that happened inside this home. And now their neighborhood can finally move on.
It affected everybody.
The crime scene tape is long gone, but this Bonita Springs neighborhood is scarred forever.
a murderer that lived amongst us.
Danita Contreras and other neighbors say their neighborhood hasn't been the same since Teresa Sievers was murdered.
You didn't see the children out in the road playing and the people walking their dogs as often.
Now, more than 4 years later, hearing Mark Sievers' verdict, neighbors are relieved.
Everybody kind of felt that it was too much to be, coincidental.
His personality and stuff on a daily basis, basically. So we kind of figured, yeah, is he capable of this? Yes.
Neighbors say they're hoping to put this tragedy behind them.
We can move on from this too. That's really important, moving on now. We're not on limbo anymore. It's done. Long time coming, justice for her family.
The hardest thing about living here, neighbors tell me, was watching this house sit empty for so long. They're happy it finally sold and plan to embrace the new family that moves in here. I'm live on the Night Beat. Gina Tomlinson, Wink News Now.
In a matter of days, Mark Sievers will learn whether he'll be put to death or live the rest of his life in prison. The sentencing phase begins on Tuesday. The Night Beat's Justin Case continues our breaking team coverage outside the Lee County Jail tonight. Justin.
The reality now setting in for Mark Sievers that he will never again know life outside of a jail cell. Now, the same jurors who found Sievers guilty today will also be the ones to decide if he's going to be put to death or if he will spend the rest of his life in prison. I talked to a former prosecutor tonight who says prosecutors will argue aggravating factors in the case, like whether it was done in cold and a calculated manner. The defense will argue mitigating factors, like what kind of person Sievers is and why he should not die. Now, the former prosecutor mentioned that even if one juror thinks that Sievers should not be put to death, he will then be sentenced to life in prison. And one last thing is that the defense waived their right to sequestration, meaning that the penalty phase of this will begin Tuesday morning at 8:30. Both sides saying they will need at least a full day to make their arguments. Live on the Night Beat, Justin Case, Wink News Now.
Justin, thank you. A lot has happened in the 4 years since Dr. Sievers was murdered, most of it torturous waiting for her family and friends as the case came together. The Night Beat's Danielle Garcia reminds us of how we got to this point tonight.
June 29, 2015, a day that changed this quiet Bonita Springs community forever. Dr. Teresa Sievers was found brutally murdered. Police surrounded the home for days, collecting evidence, but for weeks, people have no answers about what happened. Was there a killer on the loose? Should they be worried? Their questions fell on deaf ears. And as their fears swell, so do their speculations that Mark Sievers had something to do with his wife's murder. While all this is going on, unbeknownst to the public, LCSO goes to Missouri in July, where Wayne Wright, Sievers' childhood best friend, and Jimmy Rogers lived. A month and a half later, deputies arrest both of them and extradite them to Southwest Florida. As prosecutors and investigators build their case, they release hundreds and hundreds of pages of discovery implicating Sievers. But still, family and friends had to wait for an arrest. Fast forward to February, only Wink News was in the courtroom when Wayne Wright flipped on his best friend and took a plea deal to testify against Sievers. Just minutes later, deputies arrested him at his home, where his wife was found murdered.
Mark, did you hire Wayne Wright to kill your wife?
Because of his plot.
What do you have to say to your two girls?
In Lee County, Danielle Garcia, Wink News Now.
One of the men already convicted in this case, Jimmy Rogers, is scheduled to hear his sentence a week from tomorrow. It was originally scheduled for November, but the court pushed it back. Another jury convicted Rogers in October of second-degree murder, sparing him the death penalty.
And the man who pled guilty and testified against his best friend will be sentenced in February. Wayne Wright's plea deal calls for a 25-year sentence. Of course, we can't forget about her. I've spoken with Teresa Sievers' first husband, Kenny Cousins, in the years since her death. I talked to him tonight, right after the verdict.
All of it is just, it's still surreal, I think, to me, certainly. From afar, I can't imagine what they've been going through.
Your wish for her family?
Peace, love, acceptance, knowledge that Teresa's watching over her children and all of them, and that
you don't have time to exercise, your body will find the time to get the illness.
it's okay to move on. It's okay to be okay again.
As for Sievers' sentencing, Cousins says he hopes the jury recommends whatever will give Teresa's family some peace.
And boy, that includes her two daughters who, were not part of this trial, obviously, or we didn't see much of them, but everybody's thinking about them and hoping the best for those two girls who are teenagers or near teenagers now at this point. A family picture, we're keeping their faces blurred out from obviously years ago, but your heart just goes out to them.
It does. Hopefully they've been sheltered from this process, from all of it, and one day they can really learn about what their mother meant to this community.
Absolutely.
Wink News, the Weather Authority.
Well, it was cool this morning. It'll be a little cooler tomorrow morning, and we'll get into a warming trend by the weekend.
Also breaking tonight, 3 people dead from a shooting in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. We have some pictures here from outside the Naval Shipyard in Honolulu. A U.S. sailor shot 3 civilians. 2 of those civilians have died, and the sailor is also dead after shooting himself. The 3rd victim is currently in guarded condition. We know all the victims and the shooter were men. We don't know any names. The base was under lockdown for about an hour and a half tonight. It's back open now. This is a developing story. We'll let you know more details as we learn them here.
A long-awaited conviction. Teresa Sievers' family finally hears the words they've waited 4 years for.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
Mark Sievers is convicted of first-degree murder in her death. He's found guilty of hiring Wayne Wright and Jimmy Rogers to kill his wife in 2015. A jury reached their decision in just 4 hours. Some members of Teresa's family were overcome with emotion as they left the courtroom.
So relieved. So relieved.
Now Mark Sievers waits to find out if he'll be sentenced to life in prison or death.
After the penalty phase, the Sievers defense team will decide whether to appeal. But what does that really mean for his case and the verdict that took prosecutors more than 4 years to get? Nightbeat Sydney Persing live right now at Mark Sievers' attorney's office in Fort Myers. Sydney.
Well, Chris, I spoke with 3 attorneys tonight not affiliated with this case about this verdict, and there are 2 really big things to note about a potential appeal. First, it's almost certain the defense will file an appeal in this case. Those attorneys telling me tonight at this point, Sievers' team really doesn't have anything to lose. Second, if Sievers gets the death penalty, a notice of appeal will automatically be reviewed by the state Supreme Court. That's the law. Now, an appeal will generally argue a procedural error in court. Was evidence withheld? Were witnesses properly disclosed? Things of that nature.
There was a lot of hubbubaloo about not getting discovery, about 500 pages of discovery being given a couple weeks before.
There were lots of objections on the part of the defense. Every time they raised an objection, they raised an opportunity for an appeal.
Now, Sievers' team will need to wait until after sentencing is completed to file an appeal. But those attorneys again telling me tonight it's very likely his team has already started working on that notice if they weren't already. Live on the Night Beat, Sydney Persing, Wink News, now.
The murder of Dr. Teresa Sievers has captivated Southwest Florida, the nation, and the world. In fact, Court TV is here in Fort Myers for the trial. The cable channel has its own team of legal experts. The Night Beat's Anika Henniger breaks down their analysis of today's verdict.
A family put through the unthinkable, finally getting answers from the justice system.
Family's reaction inside the courtroom afterwards, and this group hug just speaks volumes.
Court TV's veteran attorneys called all of the emotion inside the courtroom overwhelming. The visible relief attorney said after Dr. Teresa Sievers' family likely grew close to the prosecution, even the sheriff's office, through the case. Even the jury, analysts noted, needed time to come down from all the emotion, Mark Sievers included.
Those aren't tears for Dr. Sievers. Those aren't tears for his daughters. Those are tears for himself.
Attorneys pinpointed tears from a post-verdict Mark Sievers as...
First time during the course of this entire case that I've seen him look genuine, right? And the genuine was, yeah, I'm done.
The attorneys noted that while it's the facts of the case that matter most in the law, A defendant's character is still on display.
I mean, during the whole trial, this guy, the most bizarre behavior, everything looks staged.
Why he maybe doesn't feel connected to her dying, because he wasn't the one that actually did it.
Nika, what did they have to say about the penalty?
The attorneys honestly seemed baffled at the outcome of this, saying it's ironic that the two people who may have looked the doctor in the eye before killing her may get a lighter sentence than Mark Sievers. But they said because of the horrific way the doctor was killed, the death penalty is likely.
All right.
Thanks, Anika.
Well, I've got clear sky around most of southwest Florida. A little patch of cloudiness coming in now off of the Gulf. That'll last for a few hours. We're just moving quickly. Should be basically out of the way by early morning time. I expect you'll wake up to clear sky if you're going to be up early near sunrise, 7:01. A little cooler in the morning than it was this morning. 40s inland, mid-40s for the most part, and low 50s in town to near the coast and at the beach. And then we've got another extra cool morning, which will be Friday morning. Then we start a warming trend. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, back at 61, a couple of degrees above average for this time of the year. All right, it's been pretty clear by day. Let's see how tomorrow shapes up as we go hour by hour. At 7 a.m., looks pretty clear. Could see a few clouds along the coast. Then everybody, coastal and inland, and everybody in between, should have mostly sunny sky and a dry day of it. All right, temperatures outside now continue to drop. Coolest readings are in the northern counties. In DeSoto, there's Arcadia at 50. It's 10 colder or cooler. Then Marcos, 60 right now. Right now, Naples is the warmest of the bunch at 63 degrees. Clewiston, you're at 53. Statewide, there's a little band of extra cold air over the northern tier there. There's Tallahassee at 42. Jacksonville, 43. And Key West, always the warmest this time of the year, this time of the night anyway, at 70 degrees. Compared to last night, we're 2 degrees warmer than it was, but by the time you wake up early in the morning, we'll start off a little cooler than we were this morning. Fort Myers now 59 degrees. Temperatures have dropped out of the 60s, 75% relative humidity. Naples warmer, 63, and humidity at 78%. You've got a very light northerly breeze now at 3 miles per hour. So we've got the cool morning ready for tomorrow. Then in the afternoon, it's going to be very nice, mostly sunny, mid-70s on average for high temperatures. A couple of spots that pull up short of that in the low 70s, like Arcadia at 72. But 75 sounds good, feels good, and it'll be very sunny 75 tomorrow. Friday, 78 degrees in sunshine. It's going to be a very sunny weekend. Looks nice both Saturday and Sunday. Starts cool, ends warm. Warmer afternoons are in the offing here as we get into Monday and Tuesday of next week. Then some clouds and the chance for some rain on Wednesday.
Jim, thank you. Dr. Teresa Sievers' murder was a gruesome scene. She was beat to death with a hammer by Jimmy Rogers and Wayne Wright. Here she is returning home that night. Crime scene pictures show a blood trail throughout the couple's Bonita Springs home. Investigators also found the murder weapon, that hammer, near her body, covered in blood and hair. Court documents say the scene was staged to look like a burglary. Dr. Sievers had just returned from a family trip to Connecticut. A family friend found her body and called 911.
No, she's down on the floor. She's cold. The back of her head is bashed in, and there's blood everywhere.
Now, 4 years after the murder, a family has purchased that home. It's currently undergoing renovations.
And as you can imagine, Mark Sievers' guilty verdict is sparking a lot of reaction on social media. Take a look at all of these comments here. So far, 165 of you have commented on our Facebook page, and here are just a few of them tonight. Ashley Sarapulo, painter, comments, "Thank God he was found guilty. He should never see the light of day again." Richard Jandorf writes, "You are going to the only home you should know, prison." Rebecca Saraceda simply states, "Justice has been served." Sue Rainey adds, "Hopefully this gives her family some closure and her children can grow up with some love from their family. God bless them all." D. Lopes Novo says now, "Justice served for her family and her daughters." Now don't forget, you can leave your comments on our Facebook page. Just search Wink News TV, and you can also share the story with your friends and family. And we covered every single second of this case, and we streamed the entire trial on our Facebook page and the Wink News app. You can go there and see all of our coverage. Amanda?
All right, thank you. County leaders know this road is dangerous after another bicyclist is hit by a car. More news from around Southwest Florida next.
Next time you're in the store, there's a new option to spend more than you should, and it's making a big comeback. I'm Lindsay Sublime.
And I'm Corey Lazar. Tomorrow on Wink News This Morning, how if you're not careful, you can find yourself in pretty big financial trouble.
New at 11, bicyclists beware. A man says he was riding along a Collier County road and a car slammed into him, causing these injuries. Carlos Herrera uses his bike to commute to work and class every day. This happened just 3 weeks before another bicyclist was hit along Davis Boulevard last night. Troopers say a bicyclist tried to cross at the crosswalk, and that's when a car hit him. Herrera says drivers and bikers both need to be more aware.
What if it's your nephew, or what if it's your big brother and he just happens to go on a bike ride? He's not looking out for those warning signs. So it's a deadly game of cat and mouse.
The county says they're aware that this is a problem area and they're working on studies and projects to make it safer. We could see some of those as soon as next year.
Neighbors in Cape Coral are hoping for answers soon after a convicted sex offender and his mother were found dead in a home. Police found the bodies of Joanne Walpole and her son Michael yesterday morning during a wellness check. They haven't said how they died. Michael Walpole was arrested in 2012 for crimes against a child under 16. Police say they're investigating and will only answer questions when the investigation is complete.
We're learning more about how the new federal policy for food stamp recipients could impact our schools here. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP as it's called, allows most kids to get free or reduced price breakfast and lunch. But the Trump administration is tightening the rules, which would cut benefits for about 688,000 recipients nationwide. Tonight we asked one dad about the rule change. He says the SNAP program helps his families make ends meet.
Definitely have second thoughts about taking that away because it does help those families in need that do actually need it. It does help out, but for those that single parents that have multiple jobs, that are struggling, it does help them out, absolutely.
Now, we also asked Lee County Schools how this rule change could impact your child's lunch. A spokesperson said, quote, "There'll be no immediate impact on the school district. All of our students automatically qualify for free breakfast and free lunch because of the Agriculture Department's SEP program." Wink News will be right back.
Thanks for joining us tonight. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert is next.
News continues at 4:30 a.m. Sleep well, everybody. See you back here tomorrow.
Closed captioning sponsored